Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Viewpoint, your program of personalities, politicians, and perspectives. And Mrs. Busby, we certainly have a great personality.
Yeah.
And some interesting perspectives. So I'm going to have you introduce this.
It's a man I like.
Well, I think that's kind of universal in the community. You don't have to worry about that. You're not unique there.
Yes.
We always try to start, Father, if you'll recall, a kudo or two. And I think it'd just be appropriate, probably pretty obvious at this time of the year, that maybe we recognize all the kind folks who stand there and stamp their feet and get cold and maybe wet sometimes, ringing the bell for the Salvation Army. A lot of volunteers step forward and do that, and it's necessary. You know, those of us who are long gone mostly remember the days in Lincoln, Illinois, where we had an active chapter here, and at this time of the year, they would be out on. This is when we had busy downtown streets, Judith. That was a long something you don't might remember, but the band, they'd have a 5 or 4-piece band out there in their full uniforms and play around the kettle. So times change. So go ahead.
And hats off to the people who still remember the Salvation Army. They get more bang for their buck than just about anybody. And I was talking to Tony Schiff yesterday, as a matter of fact, and he's the head of the Salvation Army here. And he was telling me that he has groups that have signed up to take little blocks of time. And he was so grateful for that, because they always need people to do that. And now, there's my pat. Now, here's my pan, okay? The Kroger store allows the bell ringers to be in their vestibule there, their front entry. And others say they can't do that because if they allow the Salvation Army, they have to allow everybody. But I can't follow that, because if it's your place, like if this radio station is Jim's and he doesn't want me in here, but he wants the two of you, isn't it up to him to tell me I'm sorry? You know? So I don't get that part of it. But hats off to the Salvation Army. By golly, they're one of my favorites. Political
correctness running amok again. Why don't you introduce our guest? Because
I'd like to do that.
It's been a while since we had him up here.
Yes, it has. Father Laible, of course, is at Holy Family Church, of course. And now you've been there for more than a couple of years, haven't you?
That's correct. I'm in my, it'll be 9 years in June that I've been at Holy Family.
Is it really?
Correct. And St. Mary's in Atlanta. And then St. Patrick's in Elkhart and St. Thomas Aquinas, and we picked those up in June of 2011. So.
Well, you're just like an old-fashioned traveling troubadour, aren't you?
That's right, yes.
Yes. Yeah. That's how it used to be in the olden days.
That's correct, except they used to get around by horse and buggy or even by horse, and now I don't really
Well, I saw your horse in the backyard there
you
at
did,
the rectory.
Okay. Don't tell the parishioners I have a horse in the backyard.
Old Joe. He just used him to ride down to Old Joe's backyard.
Oh, there you go. There
I can walk down there. Yeah. It's just a couple of blocks away.
The last time you were with us, you'd been in Landstuhl. Am I saying that right?
Landstuhl Regional Medical Center in Germany.
Yes.
Correct.
With the wounded warriors.
Right.
And now you have a flyer here about a pilgrimage for military personnel, 58th annual by Lourdes, France. It's International Military Pilgrimage. I've not heard of that. That sounds like a good thing. Have you done that pilgrimage?
I have, yes. The first time I went on the International Military Pilgrimage was this May. It's been going on now for 57 years. It began after World War II, where the French invited the Germans to come to Lourdes, which is a small village in southern France, to pray for peace and also for reconciliation. Of course, that being on the heels of World War II, there was a lot of reconciliation and peace that needed to happen. And so that has grown over the years, and so every year in May now, militaries from around the world will come to Lourdes to pray for peace and for reconciliation. So there's about maybe 15,000 troops that come representing 36 nations that come to Lourdes for this international military pilgrimage.
That is very good news. God in heaven knows we need prayer for peace in this world. I think we've probably been having war since we had enough people to hold one. But boy, we sure have it breaking out all over now.
Yes, we certainly do, unfortunately.
Father, the military, when you go to this pilgrimage for one of a, well, I guess that is exactly what it is, isn't it? Are those all members of the Roman Catholic faith, or are there Protestants involved in this pilgrimage to take part in that as well?
Any troop, regardless of their religious denomination, can attend. It certainly is under the auspices of the Roman Catholic Church, Lourdes being a spiritual pilgrimage site for Roman Catholics. But for example, with this particular pilgrimage, which is sponsored by the Knights of Columbus and also the Archdiocese for the Military Services, we take wounded warriors. So our wounded warriors from the United States, we take them over to this pilgrimage. And if a warrior applies to go on the pilgrimage, a disabled warrior, and their application is accepted, they go free of charge. The Knights of Columbus underwrites that, so they underwrite it as a way for giving this wounded warrior an opportunity to pray not only for peace but also for their own personal peace and their own personal healing for having been in combat. So it's open to all warriors if they apply, and they're accepted.
Father gave a presentation at the Rotary Club of his trip over there, his pilgrimage over there, and he used a little green pointer, you know, that they use when you have a screen up there. And I sat there, reminded myself at that time, Father, I went to a meeting of sight-impaired folks several years ago, and the guy that presented the program was an ophthalmologist, and people walked in, some of them totally blind and some of them like Gene, sight impaired and so forth, and the guy put on a slideshow. I sat there and I wondered, what's this all about? I'm sitting amongst a bunch of blind people, and he's putting on a slideshow with his little green pointer, and I never get to soak that through my thick skull as to how he expected that would be.
Well, I'm sure it was a good presentation, but he had the wrong audience.
So there's your summary. Father, I'd like to go back a little bit, long ways really. You are, the way you went to Landstuhl is because you're a member, a priest in the National Guard. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Tell us a little about your affiliation with the National Guard and when that started.
Well, actually, I began my service in the military when I was still in graduate school in the seminary, the Air Force Chaplain Candidate Program. So I participated in that for 2 summers while I was still in graduate school, and then after I was ordained a priest, I petitioned the bishop to continue my service in the military in the reserves. So I was in the Air Force Reserves for about 9 years, working at Scott Air Force Base in Belleville, Illinois, Little Rock Air Force Base in Jacksonville, Arkansas, and then some other military installations in the United States. And then in July of 1999, I joined the Illinois Air National Guard, working out of Capitol Airport, the 183rd Fighter Wing in Springfield. So that's where I had been doing my military service.
Ministry to them.
Correct. Primarily with the Illinois National Guard, primarily the Air Guard, although I do have some interaction as well with our soldiers in the Illinois Army National Guard.
And then how did you get called to serve in Landstuhl? You were over there 2 or 3 times, am I correct?
Actually, 5 tours to Landstuhl.
Oh, my. Yeah.
One tour to the Middle East in 2004, and then my next 5 deployments were at Landstuhl. So the Air National Guard Chaplain Corps picked up Landstuhl as one of their deployment sites, I believe in the spring, like May of 2004, and so we began to supplement or assist the pastoral care department at Landstuhl Medical Center in Germany, ministering to the wounded warriors. In May of 2004, my first tour was in the spring of 2005, right after Fallujah II, and because of the intensity of the war, the number of soldiers, Marines, airmen, sailors that were coming in that were wounded, we continue to go back on a regular basis. And so I ended up doing that for 5 tours between 2005 and 2011.
We might have some visitors who do not really know the significance of Gondstool and its importance in the, quote, general war efforts. Could you just kind of take us a little bit?
Certainly, yes. And so when a soldier, Marine, airman, sailor, when a service member is wounded in the Middle East, Afghanistan, Iraq, or wherever it might be,
yes,
they receive initial medical care on the battlefield, and they're stabilized, and then they're flown to Laible Regional Medical Center, which is in Germany, for further stabilization. And so that's really their second stop along this process for receiving medical care. And so they receive medical care at Laible. It could be anywhere from 24 hours to a week. A week would be a long stay at Laible. And then they're flown back here to the United States to various medical facilities around the United States, depending on what their injuries are, so that they can continue to receive additional medical care. But Laible is kind of like a stop-off place for them. So, you know, on any given day, you know, you could have maybe anywhere from 30 to 100 wounded warriors coming in, and that many leaving as well, because there's only so many, like any hospital, there's only so many beds, and so you have to keep the rotation, you know, going in and going out. So that's basically what it does, is it provides initial medical care.
How highly emotional, though, to deal with these young people who are so grievously wounded. I'm sure you feel it's a blessing that you're there, able to be there to be with them, but it's got to be awfully emotional.
Oh, it's very difficult. I mean, it is a blessing, you know, as a priest and as a chaplain, to be there to assist them, you know, with their spiritual needs, but very difficult because of what you see and what you experience, and it's the volume. It's just so many every day. It can be at times very overwhelming.
I would think so.
Very overwhelming.
And so young.
Yes.
They're 18, 20, 22
Correct.
years
Just
old.
starting out in life.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, just starting out in life.
Even notwithstanding our lack of qualifications, just being there would not be for you and I.
No, I can kind of cry over a good commercial. I think I would not be much help to anybody.
Yeah, if you're crying over a commercial, you'd be in tears. You'd be sobbing.
Yeah.
It's difficult to be able to describe what it's like to, you know, to see these warriors come in, to see their injuries, to see there's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of, it's very difficult to see their injuries and to see them all blown up.
I'm sure that their emotional issues are almost more immediate than their physical issues.
Yeah, it's a combination, you know. I mean, because they got excellent medical care, but you're right. But you're absolutely right, Judy. I mean, you know, their spiritual needs, their emotional needs, because of what they've seen and what they've experienced. You know, maybe they've been in a combat zone for 6, 8, 10 months. You have no idea how many combat operations they've been on. You have no idea how many of their fellow service members that they've lost. Some of their very dear friends that they've been, you know, in the military with for many years. And then, of course, they've got, you know, families here at home that they're concerned about. Many of them being young, you know, just starting families. And so that's that's another whole element as well.
Do you think that we, as a country, do enough for them, not only government-wise, but ourselves? Now, you always use the term wounded warriors. Is that the term that's from the commercials that we see on television? Is that outfit?
There's the Wounded Warrior Project, which is an excellent, from everything that I know about that, is a very worthwhile organization for our listeners to be able to support. Wounded Warriors is always the terminology that we've used ever since I've been involved in ministry to the warriors, because they are warriors, and obviously they are wounded. Some are wounded very seriously physically, others are wounded very seriously emotionally, some both together, you know.
And but in terms of how we can't see.
I'm sorry?
That's the injury that we cannot see.
Oh, that's right. Like post-traumatic stress and combat operational stress, you cannot see that, but that very much is very profoundly affects our warriors. But, you know, in terms of being able to help our warriors, people are very generous Oftentimes they don't know what to do, but they want to do something. But in terms of helping, there's never. We can always do more. We can always do more to help our warriors.
We had a sheet once that listed, you'll remember this, that listed various charities that you can donate to.
Right.
And the ones that dealt with veterans, the VFW, the Legion, and Wounded Warriors, these sorts of things, got the most money for the actual cause from the donations. Which
is
I
wonderful.
Was interesting.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I mean, reaching out to the local VFW clubs and American Legion clubs is another wonderful opportunity that people in their local community can have to help our veterans.
When my brother was in Vietnam, he was in the hospital earning one of his Purple Hearts, and the people in the hospital had a contest. Every week, somebody would be the winner because the Dear John letters came so fast and furious to these kids, and he won. One week, his Dear John letter was the best, and I thought, they're trying to make something light come into their lives. I mean, so he lost the girl. He found a different one, But here they had this contest amongst them all, and Jimmy won.
Yeah, that's great.
Father, your time with these soldiers over there at Gunstool was limited, obviously. Have you had any post-experience relationships with letters or exchange with any personnel at all? Well, perhaps most of them are really kind of out of it, so.
I have not. There's a couple of Marines that I followed after I got back on a couple of my tours because their families set up websites for them. And so I was kind of able to follow and have some contact with them, but, that I have not had anything in recently. And there's just so many troops that come in, it would be very difficult to be able to have any kind of contact because of privacy laws and whatnot. They come and go so quickly. You always kind of want to know what happened to John or what happened to Joe or what happened to Susie, but there's no way that you would really be able to have contact with people after they leave just because there are so many.
The rapid advancement of medicine and the medical science changed the game so much for men and ladies who were wounded in the field. And during the Second War, thousands of those fellows who died probably would have made it had we had the science available to them that we did 50 years later. And then the other side of that coin is some have been so grievously wounded, both physically and mentally, that you shake your head and you wonder why they were saved.
Right.
And that's a deep subject beyond anybody's ken, really.
Yeah, the advancement of medical technology and the Aerovac medical system, is so perfected that, if a warrior, from what I've been told, is able to receive some initial medical care on the battlefield within, let's say, 15 minutes, their chances of survival are in the higher 90s. And that was developed even after the first Gulf War. So between the first Gulf War and the war with Iraq that began in 2003, that whole system became so much more perfected. The survival rate, from what I've been told, is into the 90s. So some of the troops that would not have survived that first Gulf War in the early 90s are now surviving. So it's both a blessing and also a challenge, because the blessing, of course, is that the service member is still there for their families. The challenge, however, is that sometimes their injuries are so profound that they'll need assistance for the rest of their life.
648-5510. Our guest this morning is Father Jeffrey Laible, one of our great ministers of God's words here in this Lincoln-Golden County area, pastor at Holy Family Church, also St. Patrick's in Elkhart, St. Thomas Aquinas in Mount Pulaski,
St. Mary's in Atlanta.
Thank you very much, sir. So we'll take a commercial break, and then we're going to talk about a subject about which I have very little knowledge and should do more, religion.
Oh.
Right back live in the studios here this morning. Our guest this morning in Viewpoint is Father Jeffrey Laible, as I said a few seconds ago. We appreciate you coming up, Father.
Thank you for the invitation.
Your schedule
it's great to be here.
Pretty tough. And I don't know. You have how many assistants now? One or two?
Well, actually,
or do you have any?
No, I do. I have Father John, who's full-time, and then Father Simon, who's working on his
Father Paul.
He's working on his PhD at ISU, so he's part-time.
Yeah.
And then I have a wonderful staff as well.
Yeah,
and Sister Mary Lou.
Some of them have been down there a while.
And she's full-time, so blessings to her.
Yes.
Well, I'm getting in over my head. I'm going to count on you to rescue me, Mrs. Busby. But insofar as the worship of God is concerned, and it seems I've experienced this. It seems to me that the mainline quote churches, the mainline Catholic, St. John's, Trinity Episcopal, Presbyterian, Methodist, whatever, in that generic term, probably are not experiencing the growth that some of the younger churches, and for want of a better word, I'll use the word fundamental. There seems to be an appeal there that I don't know, but we mainline churches are not growing very much. Are you experiencing a diminution of attendance but I guess maybe I ought to answer my own question, because they kind of put the line on it if you don't go to church there.
Yeah.
What is your experience, sir, insofar as parishioners on attendance?
Well, a part of the challenge that we have faced here in central Illinois is shifting populations and shifting demographics. And so over the years that I have served as a Catholic priest here in central Illinois, we have seen overall a decrease of population of the Roman Catholic population. I think a lot of that has to do with the economy, and where younger people have got to go to larger, more metropolitan areas in order to find jobs. So, years ago when I was a kid growing up, a family could support, on just maybe a 80 or 100 or a couple of 100-acre farm. Well, now of course today farming has changed so much where the younger people don't have that option, and that's true with a lot of different industries. And so the challenge here in central Illinois is the shifting populations, which therefore affects our ability to be able to keep some of our churches open because of a lack of attendance. So we've had to do some changing around, and there has been some closures of some churches throughout Catholic churches throughout central Illinois just because of that particular reason.
Well, in fact, we had, Judy doesn't remember this, of course, but we had St. Mary's and St. Patrick's, and then unfortunately St. Mary's, gorgeous church, and we lost that to fire. But in those congregations, we had a lot of, you mentioned the farmers, both of those congregations, and now yours, is made up of a lot of people who were rural in origin.
That's correct.
Very strong.
Yes, and many of our Catholic churches, were ethnic, like what you had St. Mary's and St. Patrick's, and but today, just because of the shifting demographics and lack of population that we have throughout much of central Illinois, for us to be able to support two large churches like that are one block apart would probably be impossible. I mean, I certainly have seen that not only here in central Illinois, but in many places around the United States where ethnic churches there's a lot of combination or combining going on, or linking, just because we don't have the population to be able to support these magnificent structures that we built 100 and some years ago.
We've got the population in numbers, but the church-going population is kind of dwindled. When I was a kid, and we'd go to First Lutheran Church of Kenyon, Minnesota, I swear that door was never open, but what especially my grandma Nessa was there. And my great aunt taught Sunday school for 50 years. My aunt played the organ for, I swear, that long. And they were always there. That was the center of their life.
Oh, I think that's really true. I think, years ago, churches were very much the center of a person's family life, cultural life, spiritual life. It all kind of came together. I mean, I've heard those stories from people in many different places that I've served over the years. I don't know that it's so much the case anymore. There's a lot of competition, in terms of what people do with their time today.
You mentioned the socio-economic factor, and of course that's a huge thing. The family unit as we knew it unfortunately doesn't exist much anymore. The traditional family, we have a lot of single parents in this country.
Yes.
And you begin to lose a little thread there somewhere along the line. And those of us who grew up in traditional families can be eternally grateful for that, because we had that stability and that support and that background. Today, in your own parish, I'm sure you see that sort of situation where there's not that parental support and encouragement, and it makes it difficult.
It makes a huge difference. And both parents working today. When I was a kid growing up, that wasn't the case so much. I mean, there was one, parent that was able to stay home all the time and raise the children. I think that some parents I talk to would love to be able to have that opportunity, but because of the way the economic system is set up and everything being so expensive, many people don't have that option today, to be able to have one parent stay home. But those who are able to, that certainly is a blessing, I believe, for the children.
Since none of us in this room go to a mega church, because we don't have one.
No, I don't think we have it in Logan County. So.
But I've been to the mega churches, when you're visiting someplace else. How would you like to be the priest at one of these that has 1,500 members?
Well, in my first assignment, which was in Moline many years ago, we had 2,400 families, and so we had 6,000 or 7,000. That's a pretty good-sized parish for Central Illinois. I certainly know priests that are in parishes where they have 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 families. So it would be very difficult. It would be a very different complexion than being here in Logan County, where I can go to Mass and I know most everybody.
Right.
And so it's a very, very different experience. I like this experience. Not that I wouldn't necessarily like the other one, but I think I feel more comfortable where I can look out and know almost all the families.
Where you can say, "Hi, Joe, how are you today?" And
sure.
Instead of, "Hello, sir, how are you today?"
Right, that's right. Yeah, it's a very overwhelming, I think, to serve in the really, really large places.
But they're the coming thing, it would seem.
Yeah. Well,
not in our area, because we don't have that number of people, but in a city.
But in the cities, some of the cities where these churches or these parishes are so large, they don't have any choice. There's just so many people. They have to build great big huge churches that seat 1,000, 2,000, maybe more than that, and have several weekend services.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be difficult for me to walk out of the door after a service and have the feeling that I experienced in a small, intimate church. Is entirely different.
Oh, very different, Bill. Very different, and different from the perspective of a pastor serving in that kind of a congregation. Just think the staff that you'd have to have in order to keep that whole thing going. There are some of the blessings of larger churches is that they can provide more opportunities, more ministries, more service, because they have more people to draw upon. So that can be a blessing. The other side of it is it becomes much more complex of an operation.
There's just a lot of little churches that down the road are going to experience some serious problems insofar as even continuing to exist is concerned, because the fact that the congregation are older, you don't have many younger people, and of course, as you get older, we do have a tendency to leave. I may go join Buzz one of these days soon. Who knows? And there's nobody coming up.
Please.
And there's nobody coming up to replace us. So ultimately, they reach that point well, it's an economic balance sheet.
Well, it is, Bella, and that's certainly some of the reasons why we, here in Central Illinois in the Roman Catholic Church, the Diocese of Peoria, have had to do some consolidation for the very reason that you're talking about. The younger people are not here because there's no jobs for them, so they're going to go to Chicago or St. Louis or Indianapolis or wherever. And the older people, God calls them home, and so you were left with a church, a beautiful building. Let's say it's 100 years old, and it needs $100,000 worth of work just to maintain the building, and that $100,000 is not that much money today when it comes to maintaining a church building. You could be talking about $500,000 to $2 million to renovate a building, or maybe even more, depending on where you're going to get those kinds of resources when your older people are gone and your younger people have they're not there.
And sometimes I think we parishioners across the board don't stop to think that building is in fact a building just like my house is. And my house always has to have something fixed, and it's not cheap to fix things, except when you've got a big building the size of any church you can think of. To go to fix something, it's several more dollars than it is to fix it at your house.
Absolutely. You take what it was going to cost you for your house and multiply that several times, and that's what's going to cost. I mean, that's what you're going to start at. I kind of say, I kind of smile and say, well, everything starts at $10,000.
That's
terms
the
of
cheap
repair.
end, huh?
That's the cheap end. Everything starts at, you mean $10,000? I was, yeah, $10,000. I mean, everything starts at that, and you go up from there.
Yeah.
How much is this going to cost? Oh, it's going to be maybe $50,000. We think maybe we can get it down to $45,000, Father. Okay, fine. Well, you can get it down to $45,000. That's great. That saves us $5,000. But I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, a priest, or a minister, a denomination, they have to be not only men of cost, so to speak, but they've got to be business managers and so forth.
Yes, you have to have a sense of finance. I mean, obviously, I've got people that assist me with that. I have a business manager and whatnot, because I haven't got the time to be able to do all the accounting and all the tax paperwork and all that stuff that's required today. But you do have to have a sense of money and how to use it, and because you're dealing with other people's money, so you want to try to be as financially frugal and responsible as you can be. But you have to have a sense of, there is a business side of the church organization, okay? It'd be nice if we didn't have to deal with money.
That's the way it is.
It'd be nice if I could just send a thank you note to the power company at the end of the month.
They'd be tickled to death.
Wouldn't they? Yeah, and it'd be nice, if nobody that worked at the parish, if they could all work there for free, but,
if everybody would come and do the janitorial services once a week.
But that's just not the way it is.
From a PR standpoint, and I say this very candidly, Holy Family is well served in this community because Jeff Laible is recognized and respected so well for the job he's doing over there.
Thank you. You're very kind.
You can pay me outside the door.
Okay, a big check.
The ministers of any church, any congregation, they're kind of at the forefront in the community in various activities. Some more so, and others less. But they are an important fiber and fabric of a small community. Mm-hmm. And it's a joy to watch those who can play well in the community, and it works.
And it's a joy to be a part of it. Yeah. It really is. It's fun.
Go ahead, Judy.
I was just going to ask you a question that maybe I shouldn't.
Why not?
Now that I think about it. But at any rate, you mentioned the word tax just a minute ago. Now, there are some taxes that churches are excused from. But
Correct.
there are other taxes then that you're not excused. Is
Correct.
That right?
That's correct. Yes, and so we don't pay real estate taxes on like church property. We're exempt from that as long as we comply with the tax exempt status. So we have to be very careful about making sure that we comply.
501c3 or whatever.
Well, tax exempt status means that there's certain things that you can't do. You can't you can't, for example, have a political candidate come in and speak at your congregation, or put flyers in your church, because that could possibly jeopardize your tax exempt status. All right, that's what I've been told by the diocesan authorities.
Well, they are.
So we're exempt from taxes on that, but you do have to pay taxes on, if you own a piece of property, let's say, and you're renting out that property, then you would be required to pay property taxes on that. So that's in terms of real estate taxes. But the other type of tax that I was referring to was the taxes that you would have to pay to the state and to the government for your employees.
Withholding type things.
Right, correct. Mm-hmm.
But you don't pay income tax on your offerings, do you?
Well, no, that we do not pay income tax to the state on that. We pay a certain tax to the bishop on our offerings.
Oh yeah,
yes, but not to the state or to the federal government.
And speaking of the bishop,
that's good.
Pope Francis, he's speaking from a public relations standpoint. In my budget, that's a real plus.
Yes, he's wonderful.
Yeah, he is.
Plays
really
very well
does.
to the average Joe.
He's very inspiring. He's just very inspiring.
When he was here and said, the yardstick you use to measure others is the same yardstick that's going to be used to measure you.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was so profound.
Yes.
And see, Jim, you thought she was just another pretty face. See how deep she is, after all.
I guess it's because I needed that lesson,
right.
maybe, huh?
Right. Yeah.
Father, as we begin to wind up, do you have any particular message you'd like to be with us this morning? The homily should not be over 30 seconds.
I had a homily this morning at Mass. So.
Yeah.
Oh,
all right, sir.
Well, no, first of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here. I always enjoy being with you, and I want to thank everyone and all of our listeners for all of their support and their prayers, especially for what they do for our warriors. People so oftentimes will reach out and offer different times of support for our warriors, and I'm able to take their donations and their prayers to our service members, and they are very, very grateful for that. And so I can't begin to thank people enough for their kindness, because in my position as a chaplain, I'm able to help some of our most needy warriors. So I'm very grateful for that.
Thank you for that, sir. There you go. Judy, do you have any comment or question before we wrap this thing up?
I just thank you back.
Thank you.
I always, Sunday morning show I always remind my listeners, 2 or 3 of them anyway, that are on the air, to remember the wounded warriors, because I believe so deeply in that program, Father. I think probably for the bang for the buck, the administrative fees and that are probably not near as great as in so many causes that are good and just causes.
Right.
But we have so many men and ladies, unfortunately, who have come back in such terrible shape. And I always plead to our listeners to remember the wounded warriors. In which case, I'm going to close with a comment that I found and said, if your body's damaged, wounded that is, it usually can be fixed to some degree. But if inside, mentally, you are wounded, you cannot fix it, and that's hard. Thank you very much, Father Jeff Gossett.
Thank you very much, Bill and Judy.